for me, as someone who's really, really grinded and really understands the progression, it was also kind of like very hard to take feedback and process it, because I was aware that 99% of the feedback was coming from people who a lot of the frustrations were tied to the inexperience of the system, right? Like if you try to play basketball with your feet and you give feedback about basketball, your feedback is going to be quite different than if you actually played with your hands. And there was a lot of feet players, right? And again, it's normal, right? When the player base is young, it's normal. But I do think that people were complaining about, oh, I'm stuck in Monolith I've been playing for 10 days and I'm stuck in the first timeline. I mean, it's like, bro, like, it's normal. It's your first time. Just because you know how to play other RPGs doesn't mean you're gonna suddenly have a smooth experience.
I'm assuming you watched the interview, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously being in city and being pretty deep into it,
Yeah.
it was I was enjoying more the reactions than the information itself. But yeah, I wasn't expecting them to just drop like so much like that, and like all the big depths there, like putting faces to a lot of people that I've been hearing about, like Ghost for years, and
No.
here they are, and I think they delivered really well. Again, technical issues might could have been better, all that. I heard you were mentioning this earlier, but other than
Yeah.
that, I don't know, it was pretty sick. This patch is gonna be pretty big.
Yeah, for sure. Now it was kind of crazy when Holly started talking. I was like, "Yo, Jesus Christ, my ears!" And then she needs a better microphone. And then you get
Yeah,
used to it. So once you get used to the quality of the mic, she was just fucking cooking the entire interview through. Goddamn
yeah,
MVP.
yeah. It's kind of crazy that obviously it's a team effort and all that shit, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of crazy that a lot of the big core, boom, ideas come from a single brain. And yeah,
Oh.
she's like giga mysterious too. It's like super hard to get hold of her. And
Yeah.
well, she's cooking basically. She's cooking.
Yeah. Let her cook.
Pretty much. I mean, pretty much.
God damn! When they said that it was a lot of the credit went to her for getting the set item shard system, I was like, holy
Mm,
fuck, dude! It is so good because like there's a lot of things that I'm very excited about, like the Sentinel rework. I've been so excited about the Sentinel rework that I've spent most of my time on the Sentinel and the Warlock stuff that I haven't had time to touch minions yet. I'm actually starting my minion stuff with the CT tonight. Like everyone's
mm-hmm.
so shocked that I'm not even starting with minions in the CT. I was like, bro, have you guys seen what's happening? Like the Sentinel is cracked, dude. It's
Yeah, it's
insane.
a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, but you
Uh,
play the CT a lot, right?
I'm like 1,000 hours in on this. Yeah.
Well, you're beyond me at least. That's for damn sure. So it's really hard to like navigate what we can and can't say. For those of you who don't know, you guys watching right now, um, we don't have everything in the CT, but we were able to play test some things and provide feedback. That's what the test servers are there for. So we obviously don't have all of the information, but we're able to test quite a few things for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
that's pretty much why I involve myself so much with CT, because I mean this game is very young, right?
mhm.
And even though a lot of people have played it and enjoyed it, it's very, very virgin in terms of like, since it's been so casual, like no one, balance has been like completely whack, because who cares? You're just having fun. And as the game is getting more serious and they're introducing all of this content, I was a bit like, well, none of this is gonna matter if people feel like it matters, if
Mm.
there is some at least spectrum where builds perform. Obviously it's an RPG, you're always going to have meta, you're always going to have the build that is the build of the patch, all of that. But
Mhm.
when you had builds that were doing performing like 1,000 times x and things like that, it kind of like well, makes all the build variety that Last Epoch offers non-exist, right? Because I don't know about your chat, right? But people from PoE, they come to LE and they played Raid Lord for obvious reasons,
Yeah,
right? They played Jack Lords, like the dagger stuff when it was OP, right? And
and the
Static Orb
Falcon
now,
and
yeah,
Static
or
Orb now, yeah.
Falcon release,
Mm.
right? And the game is so much more than that, and I don't know. I think it's important to provide feedback, and I don't know. I've been my nickname is the Doom poster in CT. I am a bit cringe when it comes to typing and a bit complainy, but they've been listening. They've been listening. I think it's gonna be good. We'll see. Can't
No.
say much again, NDA stuff, but
I'm very excited for this. It's gonna be fun to go through the bigger changes as well. Like the set items is gonna be so cracked. Like we don't even know. Like when you break down a set item, they said we're keeping some of the stats on that shard on top of it becoming that item as a set item, right?
Mm,
So we don't even know
mm-hmm.
which part of the item is going to be the shards, or if it's random. I doubt it's random. So I'm assuming it's going to be a set type of modifiers you get from the shards, like the Lich's Scorn,
Yeah.
like the Dread Shade turning and converting it to cold. I'm assuming that's there, but what are the other stats are we getting? And they don't want
Yeah,
to
that's
explode the tooltips either. Sorry.
yeah. It's gonna be very interesting because my understanding is that again you're gonna shatter this and you're gonna get basically one of the stats that you normally can't get, right? So for example, I would assume if an item has melee cold damage, that's not gonna be the set shard because that melee cold damage already exists, right? So we
Mm.
can assume it's gonna be the fancy stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But again, there's tiers of fancy stuff, so we'll see how crazy they get, and yeah. Uh,
Oh yeah, for sure. What's your Twitch channel? Is Lizard underscore IRL, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah. I
underscore.
mean, I,
I'll
I
give
would
you a shout
stream,
out.
but yeah,
And just
I
make sure
can't
people
stream.
know who I'm talking about. Lizard underscore IRL. Give him a follow on Twitch, boys. He's a main last epocher. Oh, introduce yourself to the chat. Like sell yourself.
Uh, I mean, okay. My name is Lizard. I've been playing this game since 0.7 or something like that, so it's almost 5 years now or something.
Hmm.
Uh, I started. Funny enough, I started playing because of Wolsen. I had a bit of a PvP phase when I was younger, and then I was like, man, I'm too old for this. So I went back to RPGs, like the games I grew up, like Diablo and stuff, right? Diablo 2
Yeah.
especially. And then I found, I don't know, I was watching a lot of I played PoE here and there, but never too hard. And I don't know, I think I watched a Queen stream or something, I don't know. And they were playing Wolsen, so I played Wolsen like everyone, right? For a week or less. And then it was like I saw some Z's or some of these guys were playing Ali on an early stream,
Hmm.
and and yeah, and then I started playing, and I haven't stopped since. Found my game kind of, I don't know, it had some charm, and basically I was never my plan to be a content creator or anything like that. But the
Hmm.
game was, I mean, everyone was so shit pretty much that I was forced to pretty much. Because the game was so young, no one knew what that everyone was a content creator at that point, right? Because there was
Yeah,
10 people playing, right? So we were all sharing stuff on forums, and it was like the 2000s again.
yeah,
And yeah, one thing led to the other. Played a lot, played a lot. At the beginning, I played a lot of softcore, and now I mainly play hardcore.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair. Now I've been around since they were in Kickstarter Alpha. I had Leroy Benson, their initial first guy that made music for the game, did some stuff for me on the stream. The
Hmm.
devs, are you watching the stream right now?
Yeah, I'm watching the chat and
This
have it
scene
muted.
last Epoch devs made for me quite many years ago for my stream. It's like I've been around
Oh.
for some time as well, but it's like Path of Exile has always been my main game that I've been streaming. But it seems like Last Epoch always turned into this thing where they have a lot of PoE players and Diablo 2 players that's in the dev team for 11th Hour Games. Like we even have content creators like Carvaruscus joined them a few years back now.
Yeah.
It's just nice to see, and every time they have something big, all of the creators from like, especially from PoE, is like getting super excited. It's like, oh shit, we gotta check out how is LE doing. And then they had their launch, right? And the launch was it was big, but they had a lot of performance issues. They had the dupe situation that happened, so they took a decision to
Yeah.
like slow things down, delay the point to the second season. And I think that was a really good decision, even though it sucked for a lot of
Yeah.
people. But I mean, looking at the sheer amount of content that we're getting, Jesus
Yeah,
Christ.
I mean, everyone understands the reasons 1.0 was how it was, and it had to be what it had to be, whatever, right? But it
Mm,
was, as someone who's kind of like could see it coming, right? It was, like watching the foreshadowing was pretty crazy, and it was pretty frustrating knowing the potential and knowing that these issues would be there. And it's
yeah,
very funny, especially with in regards to certain things being obviously broken. They've been broken. That's the classic Reddit complaint of people. I've been playing this game for 4 years. It's so full of bugs. Balance is blah blah blah. Right? It's the classic.
Yeah.
GHG, get to your stuff and actually polish, right?
Mm.
And it's funny. After 1.0, I actually got a DM from Carp, and basically he said the next time you find something broken, you DM me. And yeah, so yeah, I think he hates me by now, but it is what it is. He asked for it, so yeah.
I mean, that's just good. I mean, there's something that I feel like Last Epoch has been doing even better than PoE, and for me, that's saying something considering how long I've been playing Path of Exile for. It's about 11 years now. It's actually 11 years now, and it's like I feel like they are better at adapting and listening to the community and making sound decisions for changes that is in line with what the community is asking for while still
Mm.
avoiding to break the game and what they want to create. So I'm very happy with the process of this. Like a lot of the quality of life features and like the big concern or complaint a lot of people had. Some people complained about campaign not being finished, but the biggest one was how people got to the monolith, the end game system of the game, and then they were just bored. It was just
Hmm.
repetitive. There was lack of content. It was sloggy. It was slow, right? And I feel like the stuff that you and I have seen in the CT, and some of it has been teased already, is really doubling down on fixing the entirety of that big complaint, which was the
It's
main
it's
topic, right?
it's such an interesting topic too, because you're absolutely right about everything you said. But it also, I think it actually, let me rephrase this. It was very reaffirming watching PoE 2 launch, and I actually played it quite a bit
Hmm.
because I felt that things that happened on that game also happened on Ellie. For example, the first time we did the campaign in PoE 2 without all the key, I don't know how long it took you, but it took me, I don't know, 10 plus hours the first time, going slow and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
And obviously the second time you do it, you're a bit faster, and now people are doing it giga fast, and what the fuck, right?
Mm-mm.
And I feel like with Last Epoch, for me as someone who's really really grinded and really understands the progression, it was also kind of like very hard to take feedback and process it, because I was aware that 99% of the feedback was coming from people who a lot of the frustrations were tied to the inexperience of the system, right? Like if you try to play basketball with your feet and you give feedback about basketball, your feedback is going to be quite different than if you actually played with your hands. And there was a lot of feet players, right? And again, it's normal, right? When the player base is young, it's normal. But I do think that people were complaining about, oh, I'm stuck in Monolith I've been playing for 10 days and I'm stuck in the first timeline. I mean, it's like, bro, like, it's normal. It's your first time. Just because you know how to play other ARPGs doesn't mean you're gonna suddenly have a smooth experience. But it's true. At the end of the day, there was some truth there that the devs were the monoliths were pretty much boring, right? But it's
Yeah.
extra boring if you're playing a bad build at 2 miles per hour and without your hands on the keyboard, right? So it's like it was a bit tough to process how much was truth and how do you prevent that, right? How do you prevent someone who doesn't know anything to basically screw themselves, right? Because they just how do you prevent them to not use their feet, metaphorically?
Yeah. No, I like the way you described that. Um, a lot of feet players.
Well, I
That's
mean,
a good one. I'm gonna steal that one for a future reference.
any feet enjoyers? Well, never mind.
No, I mean you're not wrong. A lot of people come in that has never played the game, and some of us, we're not that many, but some of us have been playing the game ever since Kickstarter, or not long after Kickstarter went through,
Mhm.
and been around and helping them progress the game and develop it to where it is today. And then they had the launch. A lot of people like, yo, everyone excited about this whole thing where the game places themselves in between Diablo 4 and Path of Exile in terms of complexity. Crafting is super
Yeah.
good. I like that approach as well. I wrote to you earlier. I am sorry. We're gonna have a little shorter talk to you and me today because my fiance wrote and she's just finished cooking food. But I wanted to cover one specific topic with you, if you
Okay.
would humor me, and that is expectations of endgame capabilities, or rather, where people want endgame to be. So we had this situation in the early stages. Give me a second. Sorry. I've been having this nasty cough for several months. So this endgame focus of where is the corruption expected endgame, and it seemed to me that the 11th hour games try to make it so that 300 corruption is like the end game pinnacle. This is where you want to be for the highest tier performing
Opium.
builds, right? And it ended up with people like yourself, myself, Cinity, a bunch of other people. We were like fucking doing 1,000 plus corruption even after the scaling changes. And reward wise, the
Um,
difference wasn't too big, but we were still pushing 1,000 plus corruption. I don't know how I feel about that personally. So, based on the CT experience, we can't talk too much about that, obviously. So, try to not mention that part. But how do you feel
yeah.
about the corruption endgame expectance? What do
I,
you call
I,
expected?
I feel like the problem with corruption is more about the relationship between difficulty and progression rather than the number itself.
Hmm.
Basically, I think the problem that the game has is that because, especially on your first character, right, when you can, there's no catch-up mechanics and all that. Your first character, boom, on the cycle. What happens is like, obviously, if it's your first character, you're probably gonna start something that is wrong, right? Because you don't want to fall off. If you're playing
Hmm.
economy or if you're playing hardcore, you want to be safe. You're gonna play something that you know is gonna work, a good build, right? Most people. And the problem is like, you get so much power without progression just by existing that you basically it becomes a chase of difficulty that you never really reach. Uh, Basically, with numbers, is like by the time you get to empowered corruption, if you know what you're doing, you can do 100 corruption, 200, sorry. And then by the time you get to 200, you could do 300, but you're locked in time. And by the time you get to 500, you probably can do 600 and so on, right? So
Hmm.
you end up, and again, you're getting showered in loot, which I think they're addressing this too. And maybe loot acquisition will change with the new mechanics and all that. And to be honest, even if I broken the A, I don't know what to tell you because it's I feel like a complete noob, right? So time will tell. We need more people and see what the strategy is for that. But I think the important thing about corruption is I much rather preferred some sort of tiered system for difficulty personally that feels meaningful and that has meaningful jumps rather than this curve that doesn't really mean anything. You know, when people say, "Oh, I'm at 500-ish corruption," or 501, 567, like what is it? Like it doesn't really mean anything, and I
Hmm.
think that gets people demotivated. And at the same time, I don't want 187 torments, right?
Yeah.
But I think like at least some sort of like 4 tiers of corruption or whatever, and then the the bonuses you were talking about were, hey, once you reach the last tier, which is what the depths envision as difficulty, then if you want to go for the infinite scaling just for a slightly better loot, hey, go for you. You know, like if you were stacking the infinite delirious thingy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I think they need to take a look at how difficulty is organized, maybe in a future patch or something, because I do think corruption just being a curve instead of a ladder is it just sucks. Like
So you're
imagine
talking
getting
about
your
like having, so I understand it correctly, you would rather see like incremental steps that you take, like
yeah.
to make it really like a dumb explanation or comparison. Like Diablo 4 has the torment difficulties. It's like, oh, you want to
hmm
step up to the next one? Let's do another torment difficulty. Is that kind of like the incremental difficulty steps that you
Uh,
would
uh,
rather see?
yeah. Or for example, let's just say there's every 100 corruption, there's like a big multiplier, a big jump
Mm,
up to 500, right?
yeah.
So the difficulty is not time based; it's more you choose if you want to step it up or not. And I think it's very good that regardless of what player you are, there's moments when you think to yourself, I'm not ready for this yet. And I think
Hmm.
Last Epoch doesn't have this because you're just so strong. Like you never feel like, oh, I can't do more. And I think that motivates a lot of people.
That's fair. I'm
Uh,
not sure if I agree with the whole incremental steps. I do feel like the changes they did with, for example, Aberoth, you have to get to Corruption 300 to unlock that, right? That gave us quests, or rather, the interface, the UI of the game provided us with
yeah, that's
visible
great.
goals,
That's
right?
great.
It told us, like, oh, for the next one, you have to kill this type of boss at this corruption level. Okay, good. Now we have a visual goal ahead of us. Now I need to make my character strong enough to handle that. And then after Corruption 300, it was like there's nothing left. Now it's just infinite scaling thing, and it seemed like in the EHG wanted that 300 corruption. Like once you got there, that is the end game pinnacle stuff. That's where they want the best builds to be farming. And then obviously you
Mm,
have the outliers, like people are getting a super good build, they stack it up, and suddenly they're doing hundreds upon hundreds more than that, and they have to
yeah.
like kind of balance it so that the incremental gain of higher corruption. was very minimal compared to the difficulty scaling that went up.
Yeah,
But
and I think that was a good change, because again, I think it's a bit absurd that you allow people to create this giga gap because then you feel pressure to only play the builds that can do that. What I'm
mm,
saying is like in my ideal world, most builds or these builds that are can actually be called build, not some random guy in Reddit. I'm gonna play auto attack only, right? Like any build, you pick up a skill with enough progression and with enough gear that you unlock towards these progression systems and these mechanics. You should be able to reach the last tier, regardless of what is your playstyle and what is the build. And I think if they organized it a bit more, if they put things into boxes, it would be easier to envision. But yeah, I don't know. Difficulty, I think it's the only thing on a personal level I feel like Last Epoch still has to nail. Uh,
mm. I've never been a big fan of Greater Rifts, Infinite Scaling, or Delve in PoE. I never liked it.
yeah,
I
I don't think that's good either.
I would rather have them cap corruption and like this is the
Yeah,
hardest you can
absolutely,
make it, and then they
absolutely, I agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, and I feel like having systems similar to what PoE has, that you can use scarabs or deadly
Hmm.
orbs, all of those things, so you can juice up the monoliths to be even harder. But the baseline difficulty, like Alkan Go map style monolith
Yeah.
running, if
Yeah.
to basically
Maybe I
having that to be
explained
that approach.
myself. Maybe I explained myself poorly, but that's basically what I would like. More of like these boxes of like let's say 4 or 5 difficulties, not more, because
Mm.
otherwise the ladder starts looking like a ramp, right? And
Yeah,
then maybe this scarab slash delirious slash imbuing could be the role that infinite corruption has now, right? That could be
yeah.
the extra juicing that you get slightly. You don't really unlock anything by doing it. You're just being more efficient or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think that would be more, like at least it seems like it would be something that both you and I would enjoy more in that sense. Like, because I never
mhm.
like infinite scaling. Um, like there's no end, right? I already play a game that has no ending. It's called Tibia, but that's that's a different game, you know. So it's like in ARPGs, I would rather see clear goals, which is more because once it did the change with the corruption to like, hey, you want to have to go 300 to do Aberoth. I was like, oh, great. Every time I did one of the bosses to progress that quest chain, if you will, I had a
Yeah,
visual goal ahead of me that was more fun. There was something I could look forward to. The game is now telling me that I need to get to this stage to be able to progress my end game enjoyability, if you
yeah.
will.
I feel like that should be everywhere. Like this, what
Mm,
you're talking about, it should be everywhere. Like,
yeah, that
but
seems
yeah.
pretty good. Um, like I said, I have to make this a little shorter one. But
No worries.
what is the single most let's put the question like this: what is the one thing you're most excited about in the upcoming
Uber Abaroth.
yeah, the Uber Aberoth? That's it.
Yeah,
Chingin
yeah.
TV just subscribed.
I would even say it's the only thing I'm excited about. Like that's the big of a gap. Like I need my carrot, I need my carrot on the stick. So
Uber Aberoth. Yeah.
yeah.
Do you think that it's going to be something a lot of people will kill, or do you feel like it's going to be one of those extreme fights where very few will actually be able to do it?
I mean, without getting in trouble, I'm just gonna smile, basically.
Okay, I like that.
Big
That's a
smile.
good way to go.
Yeah.
All right, I do have to call it, but if you're down to talk more about this, I'd be
Yeah,
happy to do
sure.
that.
Sure.
I will ask you one last question before I'm going to run into the house and get some food. I'm having an interview this Friday with Voice from ESG, and I plan, or my intentions with my interview is to focus more on mechanical stuff, the Sentinel rework, and class balance.
Mhm.
For example,
Okay.
like the Lich is still lacking a skill, as an example of something I'd like to bring up on this interview. So, knowing my intentions with how I want to structure that interview, do you have any specific questions that you would like me to bring up in the interview?
I guess if I had to make a question myself, it would be something along the lines of why have the devs never been comfortable sharing the threshold of EHP or DPS that builds they feel comfortable with, Because this like 300 corruption thingy, we all know it's copium, right? It's something they say so people shut up, I think. So I would like to know, like, okay, like if a build that is fully geared has more than this DPS, we should probably look at it. And if a build doesn't reach this DPS, we should probably buff it. Like, Is the I'm why have they not commit to math basically in that regard for balance?
So you would want some more transparency in this.
I would even like to know if they even care about this. I don't even know if this exists internally. Maybe it does. I have the feeling it doesn't, but I would like to know. I understand they focused on designing the game first and then,
Okay.
but yeah,
No,
to
I'm
me,
adding it to a
this
list. So if I find a moment, if I find the opportunity to ask the question in the lines of this, I will see if I can do that.
yeah.
All right. Well, listener, thanks so much for stopping by. Even if it was a short one, I was hoping I could talk to you for
No
like half
worries.
an hour, but I'm gonna have to cut it short. So thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate you, man.
It's all right. I mean, make sure you eat the food with your hands, not the
Not
feet.
my feet. No, I'll
Yeah,
remember
exactly.
that.
Good.
All right, listen. Thanks for stopping by, man. I appreciate you. I'll catch you later, dude.
Hey, have a good one.
You
Thank you,
too.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.